23rd of July, 1918, 11 p.m., Holzminden, Lower Saxony. Lieutenant Walter Butler lies on his side in a shaft no higher than his shoulders. One hand claws forward with a spoon, the other tugs an enamel basin on a string. Above him, guards with rifles and a commandant who boasts that his camp is escape-proof. Ahead, a patch of beans in a rye field, and air that smells like wet soil and iron. A signal flickers from a window. Go. That night, 29 British officers will evaporate from a place nicknamed Helminden. 10 will make it home. The others will learn what it costs to vanish in wartime. At first light, Holzminden looks ordinary. 2 long 4-story barracks, parade ground, wire, watchtowers. Its official purpose is straightforward: hold captured officers of the British and Empire armies. In truth, it is a pressure vessel. About 500 to 600 officers, plus roughly 100 orderlies drawn from other ranks, live by a routine of roll calls, searches, and hunger that never quite starves, but never truly feeds. It opened in September 1917 and sits under the authority of Germany's ex-Army Corps. Inside, the best food comes by parcel. The best hope comes by rumor. The tone is set by one man, Commandant Karl Niemeyer. He has spent time in the United States and speaks English with a swagger. He is feared by his own staff and hated by the prisoners. The men call him Milwaukee Bill. He promises there will be no escapes from his camp. In a rage, he once snarls in English, "You think I know nothing, but I know damn all." The line becomes a bitter in-joke. The vow becomes a challenge. By October 1917, the pattern is fixed. Boredom pushing against discipline, ingenuity pushing against surveillance. The prisoners stage lectures and reviews. They play football to stay fit. They map the 150 miles to the Dutch border in their heads. They study guards' habits, the gaps between footsteps, the blind spots under staircases. If this is true locally, this follows system-wide. Every camp has a seam. Every seam can be pried. Every pry needs a cover. The question is how to get under the wire without touching the wire at all. The answer begins with a small human action that implies a vast machine behind it. A man in an orderly's tunic, head down, climbing a staircase he is forbidden to use. Officers are not allowed in the orderly's quarters. The orderly's entrance to Caserne B is partitioned off by planks and rules and habit. That makes it perfect. Under the stairs lies a patch of concrete that sounds wrong when tapped, a dead echo masking living soil. The first niches are chiseled by cutlery and nerve. The plan unfolds, a tunnel that will run from the stairwell to the fields beyond the outer wire. The work will take seasons, not weeks. It will demand quiet hands, quiet lungs, and a kind of faith that expresses itself in inches. Shifts of 3. The digger up front with a spoon, knife, or sharpened scrap of metal. The hauler behind with the basin, pulling the spoil back under the man's ribs. The stower in the vestibule, bagging dirt in sacks sewn out of mattress covers and old shirts. The tunnel is a body, and the body is a tunnel. A slow snake wiggle forward, lamp wicks turned low, ribs scraping timberwork as bedboards are stolen and cut to prop the roof. It is pitch black until a rat's eyes flash. It is stale air, damp clay, mice, and fear. A full assault on the senses. 9 months of it, night after night after night. They calculate by rhythm and guesswork. How far to the beans? How far to the rye? Early summer brings both urgency and temptation. In June 1918, the camp tightens, games banned, roll calls doubled from 2 to 4. Time, already tight, becomes a vice. A white flag on a stick, nudged up into daylight in a risked experiment, shows they are still 8 yards short. 8 yards might as well be the moon when a guard is in earshot. The work resumes with a change of pace. More timber, more shoring, fewer pauses. The men who have dug will go first. All who have helped will follow if the tunnel holds. Holzminden is not merely a prison, it is a supply chain in miniature. Parcels are currency. Letters are codes. A shaving brush arrives with a railway timetable rolled into its core and glued shut. A preserved tongue arrives, meat carefully removed and replaced with maps, wire cutters, and a compass. Some aides miss the breakout. Others arrive in time to be folded into plans. The logic is clear. If you can get through the earth, you still need to get through Germany. Clothes have to be plausible. Accents have to be passable. Papers have to look right in a guard's fist. A Panama hat can carry a man farther than boots if it signals respectable traveler. The details are small. The effect is systemic. The conspirators are not faceless. They have names and roles earned by months under the stairs. The tunneling party, 13 men who have lived in that clay, draw lots for the sequence they will leave. Lieutenant Walter Butler will be first. The camp's senior British officer, Colonel Charles Rathborne, will follow after a timed gap so the diggers gain distance. Others assemble their kits and their nerves. An entire reserve, the Ruck, waits for a chance to slip through if dawn is merciful. 86 names ride that hope. Numbers now are not abstractions. They are bodies queued along a corridor that smells of damp wood and human breath. Night falls. The guard rhythm rises and falls like a metronome. A lookout watches from a window. 3 floors below, the first escaper slides in on his side and begins to push, forward through timbered throat, forward through scraped elbows and grinding teeth. The tunnel takes him under a line of wire, under a sentry's boots, under the idea of the camp, and surfaces under beans. He prees at the last crust of earth with his fingers, and it comes free like the lid of a box. The first man is out. The signal goes back along the chain. The next drops in, then the next. Minutes turn into an hour into 2. 29 men pass through and into a night that seems suddenly vast. Then man number 30 jams. He has strapped on extra gear. The tunnel has swallowed too much weight and too little patience. Soil sloughs off somewhere in the midsection. A groan runs along the props like a warning. The roof gives. The man is hauled back, breath screaming, eyes wild. The tunnel is blocked. The window signal dies. The Ruck will not run tonight. The line shatters. The camp stills. The miracle has happened and failed at once. Not triumph, but triage. Imperial War Museums +1. On the road, the escape is a series of decisions measured in yards and seconds. The last 2 men out are recaptured first after 48 hours. Others slip between villages by ditches and hedgerows, counting steps, rationing daylight, following rivers northwest. 10 aim at the Dutch border and hit it. 19 aim at the same line and find handcuffs instead. One of the boldest, Colonel Rathborne, does the unthinkable. He travels in the wrong direction to Göttingen, uses his German to blend, and boards trains toward the border. He crosses into the Netherlands in 5 days. He does not run, he rides. It is the logic of audacity, not through stealth alone, but through the performance of belonging. Wikipedia others travel the old way. Foot, fence, field. A pair, trailing at dusk, hold their breath on bridges while patrols walk past. One man trusts his hat more than his boots. Captain Edward Wilmer Legat wears his Panama low, carries himself like a tired salesman, and vanishes into the background of German stations and streets. In his kit, home-sewn moccasins for silent travel at night. In his mind, railway timings memorized out of a smuggled page. When he reaches Holland on the night of 6-7 August, he proves a principle that will echo through another war. Disguise is a force multiplier. Back at Holzminden, the aftermath arrives as boots on stairs and fury on parade. Niemeyer counted his men at Reveille and found arithmetic that refused to obey. His escape-proof camp has mislaid 29 officers. Searches roll through rooms, through attics, through trunks. Timbers are wrenched up, floorboards pried, walls tapped. The clean line of the tunnel, its entrance under the orderly's stair and caserne, finally yields itself like a crime confessed under interrogation. Niemeyer glowers at the hole and rages at his own shadow. He cannot punish 29 men at once. He punishes those he can touch. He doubles order. He promises retribution. He stares at a staircase that will never again be just a staircase. The numbers tell a different story than the anger. 29 escaped. 10 made it to safety in a neutral country and then to Britain. 19 were recaptured, but even failure has weight. More gendarmes on trains, more patrols on roads, more telegrams, more fuel, more man-hours. The system diverts resources to chase men who have abandoned uniforms, but not the war. Meanwhile, inside the camp, an idea blooms that cannot be confiscated at roll call. Escape is not romance, it is logistics. Inputs and outputs. Inches of tunnel exchanged for miles of travel, pounds of earth converted into hours of freedom, one staircase becoming a gate. Zoom out. Prisoner of war policy in the First World War is a cubist picture, angles of law, habit, and necessity. Officers are generally kept apart from other ranks, with all-rank orderlies embedded to service them. Parcels from relief agencies and families create a morale buffer, and paradoxically, a source of leverage over guards who are themselves hungry under blockade. Camps differ by geography and command climate, but the incentives rhyme. A severe commandant creates pressure. Pressure creates ingenuity. Ingenuity produces escapes. Escapes provoke crackdowns that meld into routine until the next seam opens in the system. Holzminden is not unique in that chain, but it is exemplary in scale. The largest officer escape of the war, the one that redefined what escape-proof meant. The midpoint reveal is not about a man in a tunnel. It is about the tunnel as an organization. Think of the teams as cells under a single brain. Survey and cover operations in the attic. Disguise and tailoring shop for orderlies' uniforms and plausible civilian wear. Forgery bench for documents and passes. Timber procurement from bedboards, stripped and recut. Dirt dispersal crew for the unromantic problem of where to hide cubic meters of spoil in a finite space. Signal relay from window to stairwell. Security discipline to keep the circle tight. Every tool is humble. Every link is brittle. The chain survives because it never loads all at once. No heroics, just throughput. If this is true locally, this follows system-wide. Holzminden was a factory of vanishing, converting raw human desperation into engineered absence. A tunnel is not a hole, it is a process. The human vignettes sharpen the edges. An officer who once lectured on Roman history now measures tunnel supports with a ruler made from a toothbrush handle. Another who has never sewn in his life stitches soft shoes for a silent dash across a border he cannot see. Jack Shaw, an inveterate escaper, waits with footballer's legs and an engineer's patience, ready to run, but willing to be number 31 when the roof collapses. Names become functions. Functions become a system. The system, when it works, produces what looks like magic. Men gone, beds empty, guards staring at a parade ground that is suddenly missing faces they saw yesterday. Holzminden also reveals a contradiction that takes discipline to see. The men who escape owe as much to practice as to will. Football on the parade ground was not just relief. It was conditioning for a 150-mile walk to Holland. It was capacity building disguised as sport. Language lessons in a barrack room are not just culture. They are survival tools for train platforms and border posts. When the camp banned games and doubled roll calls in June 1918, it was not attacking recreation. It was attacking throughput. The German order understood, in its way, that bodies and time are the currency of escape. The reveal that reframes the earlier scenes is not cinematic, it is bureaucratic. After the war begins to tilt and then end, several Holzminden escapers quietly find themselves working with MI9, the British branch founded in the Second World War, to teach men to evade and to escape. The logic, the tricks, the supplies, the discipline, what was improvised under beans and bedboards becomes doctrine. The Panama hats, the shoe seams, the map in a shaving brush, the train timetable hidden in a tin, these pass from legend to checklist. The tunnel at Holzminden is not just an exploit, it is a prototype. That does not diminish the cost. 19 men are recaptured. Any number of them spend days limping on blistered feet, throats raw from whispering, stomachs a churn of fear and smuggled biscuits. One mispronounced vowel can undo 60 miles. One glance held too long can put a man back behind wire. Holzminden is not a romance. It is a ledger. Risks, returns, losses. And yet the strategic math is not trivial. The German state devoted time and men to a chase that yielded prisoners already accounted for. The British state recovered 10 trained officers while inflicting distraction on an enemy in crisis. Now rewatch the sequence with adjusted eyes. The stairwell entrance under the orderlies' stairs in Caserne B, chosen because officers were forbidden to be there, was not irony, it was counterintuition deployed as armor. The decision to send the tunneling party first, no favoritism, only asset protection, was not sentiment. It was throughput management to ensure that the most experienced navigators with the best prepared kits got the head start that could produce successful exit stories. The colonel riding trains while others slog on foot was not ego. It was a portfolio of methods diversified for resilience. The moment the 30th man jammed and the roof groaned, the choice to abort was brutal but correct. Save the 29 downstream miles rather than sacrifice all to a brittle insistence on round numbers. By 1st August 1918, the pattern is obvious. Reports arrive in London that dribble towards certainty. An officer registers at a Dutch police station. Another telegraphs a code phrase. A third appears like a ghost at a consulate desk and asks for a new uniform. In the press, the story becomes headline and then myth. In the mess, it becomes a toast. In the camp, it remains a hole in a floor and a silence in a roll call. 10 back, 19 not. The numbers settle into the record, not as triumph, but as proof. Holtzminden's cultural footprint grows after the guns fall quiet. A 1938 film dramatizes the breakout. Reunions convene with menus that nod to the beanfield where men rose like moles into night air. The commandant's caricature appears on invitations. Yet under the nostalgia sits a hard lesson. Effective escape is the science of plausible behavior, chained to the art of improbable timing. It is not luck, but the preparation that makes luck obey. What happened next made the pattern clearer. Late 1918 and early 1919 turned Holzminden from a living system into a memory palace. The two main barracks survived. The ground absorbed the tunnel. The war receded from trenches into files, from roll calls into archives. The men who had crawled like miners under a parade ground returned to change professions and fight another war with their minds. Their expertise recruited, formalized, taught to crews who would one day call their tunnels Tom, Dick, and Harry. The line from beans to pine forest runs straight. Strategy does not forget a working method, and yet the personal trace refuses to fade. In a museum case, Legat's Panama hat. Small, ordinary, and powerful for what it signaled. A man who belonged in daylight, a traveler with somewhere to be. In another case, moccasins sewn by hand in a barrack room designed for quiet steps near a border fence. In a box, a tin that once held tongue, now a toolbox of maps and wire cutters. No speeches, no medals, tools that made a vanishing act possible. The artifacts strip glamour and leave the workflow. Consider the input-output comparison that startles. Input, 9 months of digging, thousands of man-hours, dozens of bedboards, scores of sacks of earth hidden in attics and voids. Output, 29 men through, 10 home, 19 back in custody, with experience that will not be lost. Inparcels, coded letters, a network of sympathetic hands in Britain who repacked ordinary objects with extraordinary contents. Output, trains boarded, checkpoints crossed, borders slipped. Input, a commandant's contempt and a camp's clampdown in June. Output, an acceleration in the last 6 weeks before the escape, because pressure applied to competent systems can cause not collapse, but completion. By 23-24 July, the escape had become an inevitability disguised as a miracle. That is the thesis. Not hero worship, but system behavior. Holzminden said a camp can be engineered into a factory of absences, one modest action at a time. The consequences radiate. In Germany, the episode embarrasses a man who promised escape-proof and undermines the conceit that wire and watchtowers can defeat perseverance augmented by process. In Britain, it becomes a template, both for morale and for method. In the press, it briefly diverts a tired public from casualty lists and ration lines. In the intelligence world, it becomes a syllabus. The men who crawled under a parade ground now stand beside lecterns and explain airflow in tunnels, false bottoms in suitcases, what a border guard looks for at 2 a.m., and how to look like you are going somewhere even when you are not. Across time, the case resolves questions about agency and constraint. Were POWs passive? No. Were escapes rare? Yes, but not because will was lacking, because systems tend to hold until someone learns to move through them in pieces. Did the escape matter to the war's outcome? Not directly. 10 men did not move the Western Front. But the echo mattered. The methods taught later officers how to push into freedom in another war. And even in 1918, the signal mattered. Wire is not destiny. Return now to the opening image. A man on his side, spoon in hand, ribcage scraping timber, a watchman at a window counting breaths, a field of beans waiting with its own silence. We saw it as desperation. We now see it as design. Not luck, but readiness to catch luck's sleeve. Not brawn, but throughput. Not a hero, but a team that became a machine. When dawn came over Holzminden on the 24th of July, a roll call grew short by 29 names. For hours, that absence was the whole story. Then the reports began to filter in, one at a Dutch police station, one at a consulate, one on a train platform with a borrowed hat and a steady step. Absence became presence again, and the prison became what it had always been to those men, temporary. The universal takeaway is spare, not through bravado, but through systems, not through defiance alone, but through discipline applied to the right weak seam, not through one man's will, but through many hands turning a staircase into a gate and a camp into a vanishing act. The last image is quiet. Years later, at a reunion dinner, two silhouettes of furtive escapers flank a caricature of a furious commandant on the invitation card. At the bottom of the menu, the vegetable is French beans. It lands with a thin smile and a thick memory. The tunnel is gone. The lesson remains.